So Armando, topic of the day is lending.
Okay.
Super exciting, right?
Yeah.
Talking banks and finances, and so we thought we would drop this about what is the biggest benefits or differences, I should say, between working with a national bank on lending, national banks like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, versus working with local, more regional banks that are within the states that you're investing in. So this one is going to be episode's going to be directed more towards you since you have experience on both sides. For me, I've always been kind of a local bank type of guy. Growing up, my dad, real estate developer, got financing from local banks, Wagner, Nebraska. It was literally a handshake type deal, and they would give him, at least on my head, they'd give him millions of dollars. And I think it was in reality where he had projects lined up, developments lined up. It's like, hey, yeah, we'll fund that, and we'll get around to the paperwork. We'll get paperwork signed for sure, but handshake type of deal. So that was always my experience growing up was, hey, local banks, that's the way to go, the relationships, versus you coming in was more from a national bank perspective. And then the more we got involved together, you start to realize the other side of working with a local bank. So we are going to be asking you some questions today, bud. You ready?
Hey, bring it on, my friend.
Are you nervous?
Bring it on.
We got a lot of people watching right now.
Yeah, no. I know.
Nervous?
Oh, Taylor.
Okay, so to start off with, in your experience, what's been some of the differences in requirements on financing investment properties when it comes to a local bank versus a national bank? And again, when we say local bank, maybe kind of express or define that a little bit more.
Sure, yeah. And you're right. Up until working with you, I was working with, kind of the bigger banks, right? You end up, I think naturally you're just looking for a loan, you find good rates. Oftentimes that's kind of through those bigger banks.
You're rate shopping.
Yeah, you're rate shopping, 100%. And you laughed at me. And it's like, hey, bozo, there's a whole new world out there.
I was laughing because you're goofy looking.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I was laughing because your bad decisions.
So I think, for starters, that it's a breakdown of primary residence versus investment. So there are different requirements between primary and investment. You'll get set through the ringer on pretty much all lending on your primary house these days. Maybe 2007, 2008, you could get no income loans. They were handed out with pieces of paper, right? You say, oh, I make this much, and here's a loan, and then
I was giving those loans out as a mortgage broker back in the day, and
so you caused the crash.
It was pretty much me. Yeah, me and a couple of buddies caused a national crash, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But we call them no doc loans.
Yeah.
You filled out an application, and whatever you put on the application, we took your word for it. And when I say we took your word for it, because we're brokers, we just found a lender that would fund the loan. So the lender took your wood for it, and that was it. They'd give you hundreds of thousands of dollars based on what you said on the app and didn't verify anything.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
So back to the point of primary versus investment was really that we're going to talk more on the investment piece. So, and then specific to investment, local versus national banks. So my experience with places like B of A and Wells Fargo, and I'm getting, a loan through them, and they ask for everything. I mean, it is everything under the sun, all the documentation. It's a full-time job to get all of this in place. I mean, they're asking everything from what feels like, your mom's dog walker's sister's information sort of thing. That's like, man, what do you care that about? But so you just get through the ringer, and he was laughing at me one of the days because I'm complaining to him, bitching about all these things that I have to provide, or why do they care, or why does this matter, or whatever. If I have the money, then I should be able to get the loan. And so going through all of these, and then on the flip side, when we go to buy our first investment property, work through a local bank, And we got a loan from submitting our personal financial statements, which is essentially an Excel sheet of all your data, all your information. And they look at that and say, okay, you're approved for $1 million at that point.
Let's pause really quick. I think it's need to take a second and reiterate the personal financial statement is super important to have and stay on top of, because again, working with local banks like you're just going into, that's the main document that they look at. They'll ask for sometimes other financials depending on what they're seeing, but a personal financial document from the get-go is something that any bank kind of period is going to require, but especially local banks. So if you can proactively get one created and stay on top of it, I think in the long run that will save you a ton of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's kind of universal. You have a standard template that you continue to utilize with these local banks, and they accept that and then move forward, right? So that whole process in general to fill out an Excel sheet and submit, and they say, okay, you're approved for $1 million, was mind-blowing to me. Just the fact that didn't have to go down the rabbit hole with all these individuals, all that, Wells Fargo, which probably had already set up 10 other bank accounts without me knowing.
Yeah, very true, buddy.
Shout out.
Yeah. Thank you, Wells Fargo.
Yeah, not going to be one of our sponsors.
Yeah.
So, that whole process in general. So, number one of just efficiency and effectiveness of getting a loan was a huge burden off our backs. I mean, that was amazing. And then, not only they're looking at us as lending to us, but the other big piece of that that's important is they're looking at how we're underwriting the deal, what we see with the property. They're underwriting the deal itself, looking at the property as a business.
What would be, out of all this, what's your biggest takeaway with your experience on working with big, stupid national banks versus local banks that know you and love you and think you're special?
Yeah. And I'd like to say listen to Mark and go local, but I don't want to give them the credit on this.
Always listen to me.
Yeah, man, just it really was an eye-opener. And just you hear about it in books, podcasts, whatever, we're talking about it today, but really just seeing it firsthand for myself was a game changer. It's been a substantial impact to us. Hearing what you've been talking about with these guidance lines is honestly just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't have to go through all of these requirements, all of these details. It's, hey, we trust you. We know that you're going to do well for us, and we're here to support you. Let's go make some money together. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Sure, go find some local banks, build those relationships. It takes time. All relationships do.
Yeah.
So
and you don't need a rate shop. You need to be rate cautious for sure. Everybody, you're going to find out when you're working with local banks, they're competing with each other. So they're all kind of within the same realm. It's just really who you feel most comfortable with and who you think you can really grow with in the long term.
Absolutely. Don't say at the last time, oh yeah, I'm approved with you guys. Actually, I just found this half point or quarter of a point cheaper over here.
Don't be a douche is what you're saying.
Yeah.